The research that I did, there's a tremendous amount of material available on the Virgin Islands, and these are some publications. And my emphasis was really on the same community of the communities of St. Thomas. Even though it's a Virgin Islands project, the project was focused in the district of St. Thomas, St. John. And I am from this community. The town was laid out in 3 quarters, similar to New Orleans, if you can relate to that. Like you have the French Quarter, or we have a king, queen, and a crown prince. And of course, you would relate that to a time when Denmark owned these islands and there was a king, a queen, and a crown prince. So I'm from the King's Quarter. And collective memory is very important because much of our history is the oral tradition. And collective memory is the memory of a group of people, typically passed on from one generation to the next. The neighborhood that I'm from is Upstreet. I'm really a 5th generation resident of this community, going back to my great-great-grandmother. When I began to do the research, I realized how long we have lived in this particular quarter of the town. Much of this is really centered from grounding with my family, both my mother's and father's side of the family. My father was a Crucian. His wife was from the British Virgin Islands, Tortola, from a free settlement called Kingstown. My mother's family is from St. Croix and St. Thomas. And it was through basically my mother and my grandmother's experiences that this project really came about, or the love for Virgin Islands history and culture. The neighborhood is known as Upstreet, and the slide to the left is a vernacular cottage that my grandparents lived and had a grocery store. And in the 1900s, local grocers were a big thing. And I'm sure many of you would know in your own communities, the local grocers. So my family were grocers. And you could see a grocery store of the Lima family to the right. My family had a community yard. So that yard also provided a space for the community to have weddings and ceremonies and the like. And this is a documentation of the marriage of my aunt. And her name is Luella Jackson Williams, and her husband. And it's in the backyard of the family where they kept public dances, and other people would ask the family to use it for their events that did not have spaces like this. So the family had a community space. This is my aunt, who's now deceased, and in 1990, it says 92, it is 1990, we came to the mall for the project, the Folklife Festival. And it was really through this discourse and this presentation that we really went back with the idea that we should really institute culture. And we created the Virgin Islands Cultural Heritage Institute as a result of this. And the elders that came, the tradition bearers, many of them now deceased, is where this work is based on. And this morning I learned that one of our curators, Olivia Carval, passed last night. So I want to pass my condolences on to the Folklife, the Center for Folklife, and also to her family.
Are you using honey and a paper too? Could be. You could use.
So, in this project, I lost my mother. She was really the foundation of our family, and she provided everything that I know about Virgin Islands culture and passed down the traditions of the importance of family and community and service. And she was instrumental in this project because she began the project and she ended the project and now is her ancestor in our tradition. Her family were from St. Thomas and St. Croix, and likewise, they were grocers. My great-grandmother was from St. Martin, and they migrated to the Dominican Republic in the late 1900s. So in this project, in documenting the community today, we tend to forget the earlier migrations of Virgin Islanders out of the Virgin Islands. And the Dominican Republic is one example. There are many other examples where we came, especially to the United States after the sale and transfer of the Danish West Indies to the United States. Upstreet community is where we have been forever. And this property has evolved. My great-grandparents had a grocer. My great-grandmother was a baker. It was a taxi stand. It was a gas station that my father operated after when they returned home from the United States, and they continued the family legacy. In this community, there are many families similarly who have so many aspects of their history documented in this community. This is Alton Adams Sr., the first Black bandmaster recognized in the U.S. Navy, and his family, and they lived in this home that is located in Kangansgata. And one of our interviewees was Yvette Finch. And here she is. She's now the president of We From Upstreet Organized, the president of the community organization and the whole family home and the family clan. We From Upstreet is a very important element celebrating 30 years of community residents who wanted to make a difference in their community, and they were documented as part of this project. Likewise, engaging young people, Christopher McDonald to the right and Malachi Thomas, both exceptional young men, were part of the project and interviews as part of a next legacy, a next generation. We also engaged community activists, all from this community. We have Delsa Torres Capdeville, a community activist. She had Kids Scope for abused children and is now retired and still engaged in the community as a storyteller and tradition bearer. Gleb Corbina Davis, an educator and tradition bearer, musician, who keeps much of our folk traditions alive through music. And you're looking at slides of our Christmas morning celebration in the Emancipation Garden in St. Thomas on December 25th. We have other members of Upstreet, many of them educators and community activists that were interviewed as part of the project and gave their insights of life in that community as well as the work that they do. The second community that we moved to was the Laupat neighborhood. Likewise, a very similar history. These areas were really the concentration of these areas were really dedicated to the Black population on St. Thomas during the Danish period and have continued to be residential areas of ancestral homes. And this is an example of the type of structures that you would find from the 19th and 20th century. In that community, likewise, they wanted to preserve the history of that community, and they lobbied to build a community center on the grounds of an old a home for the aged that was dedicated many decades ago. And they got a community block grant, and this structure was built as a learning center and a place where the community could come and exchange and educate the community as a whole. Not too far, right next to this community, is the Garden Street community. This area is also very diverse, mostly educators and government officials, and it's grounded by a church, All Saints Cathedral Church, an Anglican church that was built in 1848. And this is Maurice Donovan, whose grandmother lived on the other side, Long Path, and now a resident of Garden Street. And we also have the present dean of the Cathedral of All Saints Anglican Church, who, as a young teenager, came to the Virgin Islands and became, from that experience, entered into, she wanted to be a priest, and she became an Anglican priest and is now the dean from that experience. We have entrepreneurs and resident Judith Watlington Edwin, who is a businesswoman who opened, after her retirement from the University of Virgin Islands, opened a tea house in this community. And it's called E's Garden Tea House in honor of her mother. Likewise, in 20th century, 21st century, the aspects of life in this community has changed. And this is a jeweler, a merchant, Sunil Mohani, who bought a building and opened a jewelry store in the back of our main street in the transformation. So in reference to gentrification of this community, likewise, you have a son of an immigrant, Indian immigrants who came to St. Thomas, who is now a native, who are a Virgin Islander, and felt that he wanted to make an investment in his community and opened this store. We also have a very interesting Jewish community. We have the second oldest Jewish synagogue in the Western Hemisphere, and this has sand on the floor going back to the Sephardic Jews that came out of Spain into the Caribbean. It is the oldest under the American flag in continuous use. And you see the interior, the exterior, and a picture of Rabbi Moses Sasso, whose granddaughter was interviewed as part of the project, Dorothy Maguire Isaac, and also Jackie Jeffries, an African-American who moved to the Virgin Islands in the late 60s, early 70s, and has made it her home. There are two members of this community that were documented. The other quarter we're moving into is the Queens Quarter, which Long's Path and Garden Street is. And Main Street neighborhood is the commercial district of the community. And that is very interesting because as you come into the commercial district, there is this public square, known as Post Office Square, where the community decided to dedicate a space to educators. These educators are Antonio Jarvis, Edith Williams, and Rachel Francis, who made significant contributions to Virgin Islands as community activists and educators, and these were put up by the community in their memory. And we had a project to restore them. This was really driven by one of the individuals we interviewed, a tradition bearer, Alda Monsanto, who we lost in this project. At the end of the project, likewise, she died. So this was the second person I interviewed that has passed on. And she asked me to assist her in this project in getting a qualified sculptor to do the restoration. She got the funding, and we did the project. community engagement. And this is her home in Savannah. This is Megan Forbes. And Megan Forbes is married to one of the great-grandchildren of Rachel Francis. She's a scholar and researcher, and she came to St. Thomas to do a lecture on Rachel Francis. And she went into the community to where he was from. And likewise, Miss Monsanto is a cousin of Rachel Francis. We have other merchants. One of the few native Virgin Islanders who still own property and operate a store is Katina Kolianos, Isla Bean, also of the Jewish community. And she has a lingerie store in Lower Main Street and continues to operate and manage that property and a store. We have a Mr. Deswani. Mr. Deswani is the president of the Indian Association. Most of the stores now are on Main Street are run by Indians from India and from the other parts of the Caribbean, and most of the stores are jewelry stores, and he represents that community. We have also merchants, Ashford, Mr. Ashford and Mrs. Smith, who we interviewed. Mr. Smith lived in Main Street. He lived in Lampard. He lived in Upstreet. So he was very diverse in terms of various communities his family has lived in. Now the family resides in the Upstreet community where he has his business, the Native Sun, which is a ferry. Their family is known for the ferry business in the Virgin Islands between the British Virgin Islands and St. Thomas. And Ashford is a Palestinian who came to St. Thomas and made it his home and sold goods out of the back of his car, the trunk of his car, and eventually bought a property or rented a property and opened his own department store. The lieutenant governor, who was born in St. Kitts Nevis, whose family migrated to the Virgin Islands in the early 60s, who lived in the Main Street area and is now the lieutenant governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, was also interviewed and engaged in this community project. We have the Market Square. We're moving into the Crown Prince's Quarter, and Savannah and Down Street. And this is a public square that continues to be a public square of where we meet, where we gather, exchange ideas, see our friends. And this is the Saturday market where it becomes the most active, engaged space of the week. And we look forward to, many of us look forward to going to the local fishermen and the farmers for our goods, and that supplements our diet and our cuisine. The Savannah neighborhood is a historic free Black and Jewish community, historically established around 1764, 1765. Mrs. Monsanto, Alda Monsanto, was born in this community. And as a result of that, we have other Savanneros who were born in this community. We have Dr. Ken, who we also lost in this project. At the end, he was buried about a month ago. And the various members of the community that we were able to document in this project. And we were very happy to have them engaged. This is Miss Basu. She's also from St. Kitts Nevis, a long-term resident. Also a property owner that purchased the property in this community as part of the redevelopment of this community, and sites of memories like the cemetery. And these are Haitian pastors, immigrants who came from Haiti to the Virgin Islands that are now very much part of this community. We have Down Street, and we were able to document various members of this community. The Dominican, they have opened stores and bought properties and reside in these areas. And we have last rites and belief systems that also were part of the project, where we documented sacred spaces and traditions, funerary traditions and the like. So these are slides of that. And then we have the Frenchtown neighborhood, where we documented the French community. They came to St. Thomas in the 1860s and still a very vibrant community. It's also celebrations, carnivals, and occasions to celebrate our history through various aspects of annual events. And this is Delegate to Congress, Stacey Plaskett, dedicating a plaque at Ram's Head on St. John. We have the Puerto Rican breakfast, where Crucians and Puerto Ricans came together to celebrate their ethnic diversity as Crucians and created this annual event. And likewise, the Crucian Christmas Festival. Foodways are very much part of it, and also the younger generation that really we are very happy to see many of them taking up the mantle of our traditions. Virgin Islands Carnival, which will happen in a couple weeks, and the gatekeepers of our history, Sean Krieger, and projects that we are working on presently of public spaces to turn them into places of memory. And this is one project that I'm presently working on. So this is our project team: Monique Clinton Watson, Morgan Richardson, Christopher McDowell, and Nelson Watson. Can you please stand and be recognized? They're in the room. Okay. And I end with, there are years that ask questions and years that answer. Zora Neale Hurston, dedicated to the ancestors who walked with us and guided us through to the completion of this project. Ashe. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. And I think what you're saying is collecting these stories of people is so important, to get the stories from them before they pass and before we lose that history forever. So this is really amazing. Thank you. So I admit I'd never heard of the Brooklyn Juvet Festival before researching our next recipient. But after watching the videos of the parades and the steel drum music, I'm very excited to introduce Sandra Bell. She is a production manager, producer, teaching artist, and a third-generation carnival costume designer. She has won the Individual of the Year for Best Costume Design. Are you ready for this? In 2016, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 23. She is the CEO of Journey Agents, Inc., which is an artist booking and special events production company. She is the co-founder of the Juvet Fest Collective, preserving and presenting Trinidad and Tobago classic-style Juvet locally, nationally, and internationally. She is also the executive producer and head curator of the Juvet Genesis Immersive Experience exhibition in Leifert's Historic House in Brooklyn, New York. She co-led the 2023 Community Collections Grant Project, documenting, archiving, presenting, and fostering Trinidadian Juvet traditions. Please welcome Sandra Bell.
Okay. What a great presentation by everybody before me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I can match up. Anyway, Sandra A.M. Bell. I say that because A is for my mom's name and M is for my daddy. I gotta keep doing that. The first thing I would like to do is give an honor and tribute to the indigenous people who have occupied this land before we got here. And to thank my ancestors on whose shoulders I stand on. And also to thank City Law who's been documenting the living traditions of New York City since 1985. And of course, to the Library of Congress, who we feel very honored to be here today. So we'll start with what you see here. Right, this is what you see about Juve Band. Right. And what you hear is Juve music. Right, all rhythm, no big box, no DJ. So what is Juve? For those who speak French, do you know what it is? What it means? Well, if you don't, I'm here to tell you. It means opening of the day. And that is the creolized definition of this pre-Lenten, pre-dawn carnival before the day carnival. Juve was officially recognized in 1881 in Trinidad and Tobago after many bitter battles and burning of cane fields and certain poisoning of the masters. So what I want you to do with me just now, I'm going to do a little bit of call and response of Juve, what you would do in a Juve band on a Juve morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, okay? So I'm going to say, I want you to say 5, 5, 5 in the morning. Let me hear you say it. Okay, 5. I'm going to say this again. 5, 5, 5 in the morning. I want you to sing it now. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do this 3 times, and you're gonna sing 5, 5, 5. Okay? Okay. 5. What a way you dingle. Gal, I see you down by the crazy. Girl, your mother looking for you now. Okay, great. Give yourself a hand. Right. So 5, 5, 5 in the morning is a traditional Juve song that is sung, chanted as you process down the street. So Juve is made up of characters, traditional characters that mimicked the plantation owners, the slave masters. So they are traditional characters as the Dame Lorraine, as Jab Jab, meaning coming from the French word Diablo. As the Creoles always shorten things to change things. So you have characters like Dame Lorraine, which mimic the plantation owners' wives. You have Jab Jab, which turned the devil creature from the religion into a character, because Africans does not have devils and angels. They have ancestors, but no angels and devils. They did not know anything about that. But they took this connotation and turned it into a character, which you will see. There's also Baby Doll, which you will see, who is the comedic, tragic character of young women who either were raped through incest, through trying to make a living, get pregnant, have a baby, and don't know who the daddy is. Her character dresses up very pretty, goes around in the carnival band, and is looking for the baby daddy, and points at certain men and say, "You're the baby daddy." And then she demands money from them, and they give her money and they run. So then she goes to the next man. "You're the baby daddy." And she really is looking for the baby daddy, but she's also very poor. So this is her way. So that's a character you're going to see as well. You're going to see the midnight robber, who came later on, who, when the Americans came and they were looking at all the cowboy movies, developed this character that robbed both the rich and the poor, and wore a big hat with a rifle and very elaborate speech about what happened to your mother and what happened in the village and all of that, and sort of frightened you into giving him money as well. So those are some of the characters that developed out of Juve. Let me hear you say the word Juve. Right. So Juve now is how carnival got created. You go to many carnivals, you see all the bikini and beads and feathers of the day. That's not how it started. Okay. It started out of collective ancestral memory because we didn't know the language. You didn't know. You were placed here or brought from Africa into this space. You know nothing. You don't know the language. You don't know French. You know, and it's a multitude of people that spoke different dialects, right? So one had to make up the language. So this is what the patois is about in Trinidad and other places, Jamaica as well, Grenada. So the French were the colonists at that time. So when they had their rites of spring and their well, there's no spring in the Caribbean, right? As you know, and also their religion. So they've had their beautiful gold. So it's a little video on how we got to what we call the carnival today.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Sandra A.M. Bell, and we're standing on the Lefferts Historic House on the porch, which hosts the Juve Genesis Immersive Experience, a multimedia exhibition on Juve. What you're seeing here are some of the traditional Juve characters. Our first character is what is known as the Midnight Robber, the Pueblo Gwenad. And the Pueblo Gwenad came out of the West African tradition of the Igungun. The Igungun were the masqueraders that brought the messages from your ancestors to the people who are alive, the villagers. Baby Doll is a sort of comedic, tragic character. And this character is an essential part of Juve. She goes around with a baby in her arm and a big bottle, demanding money from men who she accuses to be the baby daddy. The Jab Molassie. As sugar was king, there was lots of molasses coming out of that sugar. So folks painted their whole body with this molasses, which is black. They use oil and black paint. So I want to now show you to one more of our characters that is essential to Juve. This is Dame Lorraine, who mimicked the slave masters and the plantation owners' wives. This particular character carries an umbrella, has her arms covered because she's a white woman and doesn't want to get sunburned, wears gloves, wears a mask, carries an elaborate bag and probably a big hat with plenty of flowers and a mask. Usually, back in the day, it was only men who played these characters, but now women play them too. For a Juve band to really be a Juve band, you have to have music. Of course, being West African, we have to have our drum. What you see here are the grater, you see bottle and spoon, you see cowbell, and what we call shak shak. And tambo bambo is also a percussive instrument originating in Trinidad and Tobago when the drums were banned, of course. And these bamboo sticks were used to beat on the ground, make your rhythm from it. In this showcase, you will see things tire iron, more bottle and spoons, biscuit tins, which came out of Britain, and we made instruments out of them because at that time the drums were still banned, so we had to do something. You'll see the tire irons, which I consider the second instruments of Trinidad and Tobago. What do you do with discarded truck parts? You make instruments out of them. And tire iron is one of the essential instruments in Juve. As I said, it's a multimedia exhibition, and part of this exhibition are the photographs, great photographs by Jason A. Ordain from Trinidad and Tobago. We have the Fancy Sailor, we have the Jab Jab, we have the Midnight Robbers. We have 3 different kinds of Midnight Robbers. We have 2 different kinds of fancy Black Indians, and the dragon, and of course the gorilla. This was done by Alfredo Caballo, a Caribbean artist back in the day who captured the stick fighters, the boutonnières, the ones who fought for you in the village and fought among themselves as well. In this room, it is fashioned after what we call the barrakyard. As I explained earlier, the barrakyard were shacks in the back of the big houses generally, where the enslaved people live and the freed people live, because the barrakyard was very undecorated. It was very neutral. You used what you had. You tried to make a little furniture in there. You build up your shack with whatever piece of wood and thatch roof if you had. Now, in the barrakyard, people cooked outside. As you can see, we have this pot, right, with some chickens getting ready to go in the pot. And we have things like the coal pot, because that's what people cooked on. And there was no electricity, so they used what we call flambeau. You put kerosene in here with a wick and pray it doesn't get too close to your eyebrows or your hair, or you won't have any. The women mostly cooked on these coal pots. And of course, in those barrakyards, there were people selling, like Miss Merle. She would be selling break and saltfish. And bake is a fried bread, or you could bake it on top of your coal pot. That was a popular meal in a barrakyard, especially on the weekends when they had music and people were dancing. And we're still in the barrakyard, and of course there are people like Mr. Peters who sell hot nuts. You'll find people selling hot nuts, fried bacon, saltfish, all over Trinidad and Tobago and in other Caribbean countries during Carnival and beyond. Without Juve, there's no Carnaval.
Yeah. This looks easy, but it's not. It took us years to get this together. So just to put things in order, we have everything starts with Juve. Almost everyone who has a carnival now has a Juve. But I have to say that Trinidad has the deep meaning of where it comes from. It came out of struggle. It came out of fight for freedom, the emancipation of slavery, and the fight for cultural expression, because yet we served the masters, but we couldn't participate. When the sun came up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, all Juve done. You had to get back, help them get their costumes together, and cook the food and empty the pot, etc. So 1881 was the year that Juve was officially recognized by the English, because by that time, the French just got sick of the whole mess and decided to hand it over to the English. And so from that point until 1962, Trinidad and Tobago was British. But the fight continued. And so today, as the transplants like myself, we bring Carnival wherever we go. So there's Carnival right here in Washington, D.C., Boston, New York, which is like the mother, Miami. I hear there's one in Houston now, a little bit in Los Angeles, and I'm at Orlando and Atlanta. So it not only has become a joyous thing for everyone who lives there, also economically beneficial. So the fight continues to change the narrative about what Juve is about. Because many people participate. They have a good time, but they have no idea of what it took to get to where we are today. So you see the beautiful girls in the beads and feathers, and they themselves don't even understand the struggle that it took. And we're still fighting today to keep that tradition alive. It's a living tradition. You could always join the Juve band. You don't have to know anybody. Just jump in, put some paint on, some powder or something, jump in. So I want to end by saying, let's do one more call and response. I want you to say 555 in the morning. Nah. I want you to sing 555 in the morning. Oh Lord, what a Creole bacchanal. I want to see you again next year. Thank you. I made that up, okay?
Does anybody from the audience have any questions of any of the? Oh, right over here. Can we get?
Hey, Chris, that's my son.
It's a family thing.
Thank you. Oh.
Well, said he shared this. Yeah, can you tell the audience a bit about the differences of when you first came to America and experienced Labor Day Juve in America versus what you experienced or remember from Trinidad?
Well, first of all, I grew up in a mask camp, which is a masquerade camp, where you design the costumes, you come see the pictures you buy, and you hang out, drink, eat, whichever. So I grew up in a mask camp, which is where we lived. You know, everything sort of happened where you live. You didn't have a separate entity. And my uncle Ken Morris, who passed away, was the big artist, not only in Trinidad, but the Caribbean. And I got to experience that. You know, I didn't know what was going on. I was a little bitty girl, but I got to experience all the different people, see all the costumes, help with whatever I could help. And so when I came to America, it was cold and dark and everything looked alike and I hated it. But I managed to find the community, the Caribbean community in Brooklyn. And I then decided to say, well, let me try to make myself more familiar and get to know some of these folks. So, and thank goodness it's still happening in Brooklyn. It's lost some of its luster, but we're fighting to get it back. Miami is trying to take over, but we're fighting to keep the tradition alive. And we have our Juve band with our partners, 2J and Friends. We've been very successful as people's choice of the last 3 years. And even though I don't design as much anymore, we still have our Juve band. And if you want to join a Juve band, you can always call me and you could join up for Labor Day in September.
Any other questions?
Yes, going back to your presentation, you've sort of highlighted the quarters of St. Thomas. Can you give us an idea of it as far as mile-wise, how much of that was entailed for that area, and how much was I guess was not sort of mentioned, and reasons why?
Well, the project was submitted documenting neighborhoods and the folk culture. And I selected the 3 quarters of Charlotte Omni because there are communities that are transforming on a daily basis, and the importance of documenting it. Historically, those communities was very important because you really find very little information about their own neighborhoods. And as they're transforming and gentrification is taking place, the collective memory of the long-term residents, those who were either born or second and third generation as Virgin Islanders, have moved away. Their children have moved away. Their grandchildren have moved away. Buildings are being shuttered. Communities are in some cases in deplorable conditions. That collective memory of those neighborhoods die with the individuals. As I stated, just in the project, we lost 3 elders in that community. And there are other individuals who are passing. I mean, between COVID and the present, we've lost a tremendous amount of many Virgin Islanders, and they have left our communities undocumented. Their memory, their contributions outside of, and in some cases, there were no funerals or there were memorials outside of the community. And some people don't even know these individuals have passed. So I felt it was very important to document the vestiges of these communities as the transformation takes place.
Back here, we have a question. Do we have a microphone? There we go.
Oh, I got the mic, so keep your hand up. My name is Roland Roebuck. I'm from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, namely St. Croix. So I'm extremely proud that my brother Jackson is here presented. My question to the panelists is the following. How do you envision the continuation of your projects under this new repressive presidential scheme to deny the work that you're doing, and what sort of strategies are you developing to overcome that suffocating attitude of this president? And in reference to Mr. Jackson, I'm interested in how Denmark is addressing their cultural relationship with the Virgin Islands. So, thank you.
I guess I'm going first. So it's a good question, and it's at the front of pretty much everything Los Herederos is thinking and doing right now. And I think to answer your question, I mean, for us, this work with this archive and this type of documentation is only more important, right? So our dedication to doing that work, to be very transparent with or without funding, is there because we feel like, you know, we are set up to do this. And now, as I said, it's always important. So I want to underscore, it's not that it was easy or free-flowing before, right? But now it's all the more important. And so, you know, when we saw the rapid changes that were afoot, that we're all dealing with now, one of the conversations that Mauricio and I immediately had was, you know, obviously, how does it affect our work, but also what can we do to be strong, not just for ourselves, but for our communities in this time. And we felt like the good news is we don't have to change too much. We have to just keep doing what we've been doing. We may have to find other ways of doing it, other ways of talking about it in some situations. But for the most part, I mean, as we said, Los Herederos is called Los Herederos. I don't think we're really going undercover, to be honest. You know, we're an immigrant arts organization in Queens, New York, and our name is in Spanish. So that's it. We made that choice a long time ago, and we're going to keep making that choice now. But our work is for everybody, right? And that one of the great strengths of Los Herederos, as Mauricio was talking about, is that we are not exclusively a Latino serving organization. We serve everyone in a place like Queens. We just do it in our way and from our hearts and from our place, our perspective. And so this archive, I think we're hoping will get a lot of local support and be able to, continue to grow to document our Queens communities who right now are really, when we started this project, gentrification and sort of development-based displacement was the concern. And now there are obviously other kinds of displacement to do with deportation and other things that are plaguing our communities. And so this struggle to resist the erasure of cultural communities is just really, I think, at the crux of what we do.
Yes, actually, what we really believe is in the activating of the archive. I think that is the goal, because the Library of Congress has a huge archive. We need to activate it. I'm sure that it's going to be difficult in the funding to keep doing documentation and create archive, but at the same way, we have those archives that we can activate it. So I just call you guys and everybody who's going to have the opportunity to watch this video on YouTube, because those are another tools that we can use it. Everybody has a phone. So what we all try to do with the community is to let them understand that those are the tools to activate and document themselves. So I think that now the communities have the power in their pocket. It's just give them or be with them and explain to them the importance of documenting and activate archive.
Thank you for the question, Roland. I think for us in the Virgin Islands, we've been there. We've experienced that in the past. We're a territory where we are still second-class citizens. We don't have the right to have full participation. We don't vote for the President of the United States. We're a colony of the United States, as other territories. And that's our reality. And we've lived with that for the last 104 or 5 years. I think this project, when we submitted it, we recognized the importance of inclusion, of the territories being included in the story of America, to which we've been part of before even the former colony was recognized as the United States of America, which the Virgin Islands and other Caribbean islands played a significant part in trade. We gave you Alexander Hamilton from St. Croix, a treasurer of the United States. And that history is forgotten. And so for us, the importance of documenting our heritage, our history, we felt that this was a place where it should be protected. Our efforts in the territory are that we have to educate and advocate that our local archives and our institutions continue to serve the function and the purpose that they were intended to. Libraries, archives, and museums, the humanities, very important. And as a small territory in our relationship to the National Archives, to the Library of Congress, and to other art institutions have been very important in our ability to document, record, and preserve our cultural heritage. So we will continue our efforts. I think one of my last slides was the creation of a community space. There are two projects, one called a community project that's transformed from a school of architecture to a place where Crucians can go and document and preserve their history. And likewise in St. Thomas, we seek to do that with a building that's over 200 years old, served as a school, and has been sitting vacant for the last 10 years. That we turned this back to the community as promised through these charrettes, as the government has said, well, how would you like to see your communities transform? So this collective memory is important because my mother's generation, she was born in 1928. They're the first born under the American flag. They were the first Americans. We are third generation or fourth generation. And that is very important to understand and to document. And we will continue our efforts with or without the support, but we trust that the sun will rise.
So, like Mr. Jackson said, we've been here before. And this struggle continues. And there's absolutely nothing that's going to stop us from doing our work in terms of presentation and preservation. Because if you don't know where you come from, you're certainly not going to understand where you're going. And so we are absolutely committed to continue our work and to sharing the information. And every time that I hear the dogs barking and nipping at my foot like Harriet Tubman, I think about my ancestors who had no shoes, who came to a country that they had no idea. And I thought, well, I got it going all right. And there's nothing like a 47 that's going to stop what we're doing, especially if we stick together. We're going to continue doing our work on J'ouvert. We're going to continue trying to get to every single one of those cities. And we're going to stick together, right? We have to stick together or else we're done. And that's it.
I think we had one other. Yeah. I'll jump in there.
Hello. Hello, Grandma. I have a question for you.
That's my grandson, Ellis, who's a great artist who lives here in Maryland.
That's right. And I want to ask you regarding Trinidadian mythology. Does it ever find its way into your works at the exhibit or anything you might be involved with? And what kind of Trinidadian mythology is there? I'd really like to know.
Well, so that's a long discussion, but there's a whole set of folkloric outside of the carnival tradition, like La Jablesse and the cow foot woman and the sukunya and all of those. That's a whole plethora of mythical characters in not only Trinidad, but the other Caribbean islands. I'd be happy to tell you at a later time.
I'm sure you guys will be able to find a time to do that somewhere. One more question here.
Greetings. Thank you all for your time. As a fellow grantee, my name is J.W. Newsom. What's one thing that you learned from your project, which you weren't expecting, or when you had like a serendipitous moment? Is my question.
You just did my final question. There you go. Perfect way to wrap.
I'll go first and finish up. Mannequins. There's a whole world of mannequins that I had no idea about and how expensive it is. So, I mean, it sounds funny, but we did an exhibition. You need mannequins, and thank goodness the Brooklyn Museum donated those $5,000 mannequins to us to do this exhibition. So that was a big surprise to me. And then the other thing is we interviewed 22 pioneers and people who carry on the tradition of J'ouvert in Brooklyn and wherever else they land. And I was surprised to know that there were so many people that were still alive and still doing the work. Very undercover, but very, very active in their own little ways. Yes.
I think for our project, we started with, when we submitted, we said we'll do, 15? 15 individuals. Well, it turned out to be 85. So our project it was a labor of love because from 15 to 85. You could imagine, those of you that are doing this work, what that requires of us. So we didn't fully understand that we had to do the transcripts. So it went from 15 to 85 transcripts, and that wasn't funded in the project. It also made me understand the significance of losing family members during the project, the importance and what we had set out to do. It was like divinely orchestrated. It was the perfect time. And we were able to accomplish the task. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the staff of the library, Michelle, and our leaders and the library staff, Rebecca Stro, Jason, and all of you. Too many to mention. But thank you very much for your guidance and your patience and walking us through the process.
So we learned a lot about transfers and transcriptions too. And I thought I knew a lot, but now I know more. So I think two things that I learned, and then I'll also ask Mauricio. But one was, at Los Herederos, we started off by saying that for us, we do community archiving to peel back the layers of our community. And so we learned something about our neighborhood of Jackson Heights that we didn't know before, which was that the first Koreatown in New York actually was, or in Queens rather than being in Flushing, was in Jackson Heights in the 80s. So we didn't know that. We learned that from Mr. Park. We thought we knew the history of all these different communities in the neighborhood, but we learned that. The other thing that I learned from the adventure of this project is that if you want to rehabilitate an abandoned space in the MTA, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, they would like you to have a $5 million rider in liability insurance. Even if you're only worth $200,000 and the space is abandoned. So that was a learning experience for us as well. We talked them down. We didn't end up having to have that much, but there was, as usual, I think with all this kind of work, it's an adventure, and you're always learning something new in the process, which is also the gift.
A personal learning about this project is like to be aware of my surroundings and a space like New York, and especially in that spot in 74 and Roosevelt Avenue. I just aware about the different birds and sounds that are part of New York City, because we are in that rush city that you just listen the sound of the train and the people, but we are surrounded to many part of the nature there. And it's beautiful when you just take the time to listen the birds, the sound of the wind, and it's there, and it's part of our surroundings. So it's for myself now, when I walking through the city, and especially in that spot, I just take 5 seconds and just listen it. And you're gonna find those sounds and those live birds and animals and winds and trees that are part of our surrounding. So for myself, it's really important now to understand from this project that I'm just a little part of a whole, and I want to be a part of a whole also.
What a perfect way to finish it up. And that's what the community collections grants do, is they take the time to take all of these little things from our communities and our neighborhoods and bring them together so that they are there for other people to experience. So I would like to thank all of our recipients for sharing your experiences with us. That was wonderful. We'll be taking a short break and returning